Imagine you're 18 years old, freshly signed up to serve your country, standing in line on your first day in the United States Army. You've been told you'll earn good money, that the military takes care of its own, that everything will be provided. And on paper, that's almost true. Almost, the reality waiting behind those recruiting posters is something nobody warned you about, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with the money, because that's where the first crack in the story appears. The U.S. military structures its pay in 3 layers: base salary, allowances, and special bonuses. For a brand new enlistee in 2026, the base pay sits at $2,225 to 70 cents a month. Add the standard food allowance of $460, and you're looking at roughly $2,685 on paper. Not bad for someone right out of high school, right? The Army's own promotional materials even boast that a married junior soldier at Fort Campbell can expect total annual compensation approaching $67,000. Sounds almost too good. And that's because it is. Before that paycheck even hits your account, the deductions start. Federal income tax, FICA, a 5% retirement contribution, state taxes if you're unlucky enough to be stationed somewhere like California. Life insurance premiums. By the time the math is done, you've lost over $400 without spending a single dollar of your own free will. Then comes the part the recruiter definitely glossed over. For your first 4 months, you are required to live in the barracks and eat at the mess hall. That $460 food allowance? Gone, automatically deducted. Not optional. So your real take-home, the actual cash in your pocket at the end of the month, is about $1,795 for a full month of military service. In America. Now here's where things start getting genuinely unsettling, because the mess hall those dollars are supposedly funding is not what you'd expect. The Army's food service system is built on a circular logic that sounds reasonable. In theory, Congress provides startup funds. Soldiers' food allowances replenish the purchasing budget. The mess hall buys ingredients, cooks food, feeds soldiers. Repeat. Clean and simple. Except that in 2024, an investigation revealed something that should have made headlines far louder than it did. Across 11 Army bases, a total of $225 million in food allowance deductions had been collected from soldiers. Of that, only $74 million, just 33 cents of every dollar, was actually spent on food. The rest vanished into the institutional fog of the U.S. military bureaucracy. The numbers at specific bases are staggering. Fort Stewart in Georgia, home of the storied 3rd Infantry Division, collected $17 million from its soldiers' food allowances and spent just $2.1 million on actual groceries. That's 87 cents of every dollar gone. Fort Carson in Colorado, where the 4th Infantry Division, America's first fully digitized infantry division, is stationed, collected $22 million and spent $5 million, nearly 80% unaccounted for. And this wasn't a secret buried in classified files. It was documented, reported, put into official records. The food money for America's soldiers was simply, quietly, taken, and so the mess halls ran out of food. Not metaphorically, literally, at Fort Cavazos in Texas, home of the elite 1st Cavalry Division. The dining facility spent most of the summer operating with just 2 service windows, and soldiers routinely couldn't find a meal at all. At Fort Carson, the situation reached a point where soldiers were being handed a single slice of toast and a small portion of lima beans and told that was lunch. 1 slice of toast. Some beans for soldiers who had spent their morning hauling 27 to 36 kilograms of gear through high-altitude Colorado heat, running drills, training for the kind of combat that the Army's own manuals describe as among the most physically demanding work a human body can perform. The caloric math here is almost cruel to calculate. A soldier under that kind of physical load needs somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 calories a day just to function, just to recover, just to be ready to do it again tomorrow. A proper single meal should be delivering at least 1,300 calories. That toast and those lima beans? They come in at under 300. And here's the line that stops you cold by that measure. A homeless person going through restaurant dumpsters on a Philadelphia street corner is eating better than a soldier of the 4th Infantry Division of the United States Army. So where does that leave our 18-year-old recruit at lunchtime? The Army gives soldiers 90 minutes for the midday meal, but those 90 minutes include marching back from the training field, stripping off full combat gear, eating, putting the gear back on, and being ready to move again by 1 p.m. For a significant portion of soldiers, even those 90 minutes don't exist. The Army has a policy it calls a flexible lunch arrangement, which in practice means 15 minutes, a sandwich if you're lucky, and back to work. No mess hall, no hot food, just whatever you can unwrap fast enough. For soldiers who want to eat a real meal, the only option is outside the base delivery or driving. And this is where the financial trap snaps completely shut. Take Fort Stewart as an example. That base covers 1,165 square kilometers. You need a car. A basic McDonald's delivery order through Uber Eats to a Fort Stewart, address 1 burger, fries. A drink runs about $14 before taxes, delivery fees, or tip. With a standard tip and fees included, you're looking at $23 for one fast food meal. Not a restaurant. McDonald's. And that won't be enough food for someone who just spent 6 hours training in Georgia heat with 30 kilograms on their back. A slightly more filling order pushes you past $26. And that's just one meal. 3 meals a day, being conservative and choosing the cheapest options available, costs roughly $1,500 a month. Subtract that from the $795 in take-home pay, and you have $295 left. Now add water, because the water situation on some U.S. bases is its own investigation entirely. Occasional drinks, and yes, alcohol is sold in on base stores, discounted and tax-free, and the Army's policy only prohibits being over a certain blood alcohol limit while on duty, so drinking is very much part of the culture, and that $295 becomes closer to $195. Phone bill takes another $50 to $60. Now you're at $140. And you still haven't paid for car insurance, which in Georgia for a young male driver with minimum coverage runs about $150 a month, even with military discounts. The math doesn't just get tight, it goes negative. Our recruit is in debt before buying toothpaste. If they somehow white-knuckle through the first 4 months, base pay edges up. After 6 months, an automatic promotion bumps it a bit more, 472 higher than day 1, enough to stop bleeding quite so badly. But the underlying trap doesn't disappear, it just becomes slightly more survivable. And that's assuming the soldier arrives with no pre-existing debts, no car loan, no medical bills from that appendectomy 2 years ago, no student loan fragments, no money borrowed from family, or worse. For the average American young person walking through the enlistment office door, that clean slate assumption is essentially fiction. The U.S. Government Accountability Office published a report in 2020, before the inflation surge that followed, that documented something almost unbelievable. More than 25% of active duty U.S. service members and their families were experiencing food insecurity. Not mild hunger. Food insecurity, as defined by a 6-question survey asking whether they had run out of food with no money to buy more, whether they had skipped meals because they couldn't afford them, whether they had gone to bed hungry because the money simply wasn't there. 2 yes answers out of 6 to be counted, and over a quarter of the active duty military hit that threshold. Another 8.5% sat just below it, one bad month from crossing the line. Add them together, and you're looking at over a third of America's military and their families with a genuine documented relationship with hunger. The cruelest detail in that report is who suffers most. It isn't the newest recruits they're broke, but they're single, in the barracks, without dependents. The worst food insecurity clusters around mid-career soldiers, the E4s and E6s. The ones who have served 4, 6, 8 years, who have families, who have accumulated the debts and obligations that come with trying to build a life inside an institution that structurally underpays them. The longer you stay, the more exposed you become. Why that happens, what is eating the income of experienced soldiers faster than their promotions can keep up, is a story for another day. But here's what we know right now. The most powerful military in the world is asking its soldiers to carry 60-pound loads, train in extreme conditions, and be ready to fight and die on command, while systematically failing to feed them, quietly diverting the money meant for their groceries, and leaving them in a financial hole from the first week of service. The recruiter's brochure and the lived reality are not the same document, and the gap between them is measured, very concretely, in hunger.